Today I've got a pretty straightforward video for you, so let's go with a straightforward question and answer down in the comments. What's the best movie you've seen this week? Hello, I'm Adam Caesar. This is Project Black T-Shirt, the channel where we take a new or a reissue horror movie or horror movies and then pair that with a reading recommendation that you'll enjoy if you like those movies. I'm the author of Clown in a Cornfield and the sequel, Clown in the Cornfield 2, Friendo Lives, which is now up for pre-order. I'd very much appreciate you checking that out. The newly released paperback does include a 15-page preview for the sequel, so if you already have the hardcover and you want to double dip, because we are the kind of people who double dip, go grab that at your local Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, local bookstore, and then I'll have links to buy it online down below. Today, I was trying to figure out what to do, what to make a video about. I've watched a bunch of movies since I last talked to you, and some of them kind of had a theme. I was like, oh, I'm watching a lot of reptile movies, when animals attack kind of things. Maybe I should do a video about that. Maybe I should do like a top 10 or something like that. And then I just kept grabbing movies off the shelves, movies I've seen, movies I'd logged on Letterboxd, and I was like, you know what? None of these movies have anything in common. Let's just do a lightning round where I try to get through a lot of them. So today I'm going to talk about 5 movies, and I'm going to try not to destroy the battery on my phone and destroy my free time to edit this video. So I'm going to try to get through 5 movies, entirely unrelated except for the fact that they are horror movies and that they're mostly new releases. These are mostly movies that have come out within the last 1 to 2 months. They've been released by places like Vinegar Syndrome, Scream Factory, and we even got one in here from Kino Lorber, which is not a label I talk about a lot, but is a very good Blu-ray reissue label. First movie I want to talk about is Beware Children at Play. Sometimes it's stylized as Beware exclamation point Children at Play. Sometimes it's stylized as Beware Children at Play. The headline is Beware of These Children. This is out through Vinegar Syndrome. They have this nice new art, but then if you're a Troma fan or if you're a Troma VHS or DVD collector, you definitely recognize this classic poster, Troma's classic art for this movie. This is not a Troma in-house production. This is not like Tromeo and Juliet or The Toxic Avenger or Poultrygeist or any number of Troma movies. This is a movie that Troma had acquired the rights for. It was a movie that independent producers made. Troma acquired the distribution rights for. And as such, it is a little bit tonally different than most Troma movies, what you kind of will associate with Lloyd Kaufman and his brand. But it is, if that poster really does get you, it does have children killing adults. But it is definitely not your typical killer children movie. There is no supernatural angle. There is no possession angle. The reason that these children go crazy, we have a cold open. A father and his son are on a father-son camping trip, and the dad's like clearly like an English major and talks in this heightened, very flowery way. And the kid's kind of learning that from him, and he's telling him this poem. He's like stalking the kid through the woods, they're play acting it like he's a monster and the kid's gotta hide. And he's telling the story of Grendel from Beowulf. And this kid watches his dad like step in a bear trap and then eventually die, and that's the beginning of the movie. The kid has to resort to cannibalism, eating his father's corpse. We flash forward 10 years. We're not really sure how that connects, but we go to this town in New Jersey. It's actually based on the Pine Barrens, and there's stuff in this movie based on the Brownies, which were a real and somewhat mythologized group of people who lived in the Pine Barrens. We follow a writer and his wife, and the writer's coming to meet with his friend who he went to Vietnam with to kind of figure out this mystery. The children in this town keep going missing. They keep disappearing into the woods of the Pine Barrens, and they're trying to figure out why and what's going on. There's all these other subplots. There's a huge religion element to this movie. There is like religious fervor and people who are seeing the disappearance of the kids as possibly some kind of Old Testament kind of punishment or plague or revelation. And there's a ton going on in this movie, and it's only an 89-minute movie. The dialogue is written it's so overwritten and so weird, and done with a lot of local actors, a lot of local New York and New Jersey actors who were kind of shipped down here and shot during the summer, shot during 2 summers actually, because they kept going over and they had to, in order to match the woods, because they couldn't shoot in fall or winter, they had to just shoot this movie over 2 years, which is hard because they have kids in it and the kids are growing up. It is a very odd, very regional movie. It feels incredibly middle to southern New Jersey. It's got some great flavor to it, and it has, not to spoil it, but it has possibly the most insane and deranged final 10 minutes of any movie I've seen in years. It is, this is a movie that there is violence and gore and kind of enjoyable genre B-movie elements throughout, but at the very end, we get a large-scale massacre unlike anything you've ever seen in a movie. To tell you why would give too much away, but needless to say, if you've seen a lot of trauma clip reels and stuff like that, clips from the end of this movie often make it into those promotional clip reels, especially the kind they did in the 90s and early 2000s. This movie looks better than it ever has, looks way better than the old trauma transfers and DVDs. Vinegar Syndrome did a really, really nice job on this, like they did with other trauma titles, like they did with Bloodhook, like they did with The Children, like they did with Play Dead and Blades. These movies are really getting a new lease on life because of Vinegar Syndrome, and this is a fantastic disc. I would really recommend picking this up, especially if you're a fan of this movie, and if you haven't seen it before and you know the kinds of things that I usually push pretty hard on this channel, I think you can blind buy with confidence. How we doing? That was like way longer than I was supposed to speak. I know this is supposed to be like a lightning round, and they talked about beware children who play for 10 minutes. But let's move on. We're going to still talk about 5 movies. Next, I want to talk about Fangs. Fangs looks like, from the cover and from the poster, it looks like, or something similar to that. It looks like Stanley. It looks like a guy using snakes to get revenge. And technically it is. Technically it has that plot. But Fangs is also known as Holy Wednesday, which is a lot better title for it, which is the title that plays when you put this Blu-ray from Dark Force in, when you boot this up. And Holy Wednesday is, geez, how to describe it? Aside from the snake element, there is a guy named Snakey. His name is Snakey. He lives in this Texas town. This is California doubling very convincingly for Texas. He lives in this Texas town where he's got the school children of the town collecting up for like extra credit for money for him, collecting up birds and mice and stuff like that he can feed to his snakes, that he has a snake farm. And there's all these different people around town that kind of hate Snakey. There's the preacher, the quasi-incestuous brother and sister that run the gas station that also ship out his packages for him. There's all these people that kind of hate Snakey. Snakey has a strong relationship, a strong friendship with this one guy in town, Bert, who at the beginning of the movie we know has left town to go find himself a bride in the big city, and this new girl comes in and basically tells him he can't hang out with Snake anymore. These two on Wednesday nights, they get loaded, they drink, and they listen to Jean-Philip Sousa, the Marches of Jean-Philip Sousa, Stars and Stripes Forever, Jean-Philip Sousa. So they listen to it on his nice sound system, and they just get drunk, and that's how they hang out on Wednesday nights. That's the Holy Wednesday of the title. When Snakey can no longer hang out with his BFF, he just starts going crazy, and he goes on this weird, it starts almost as an accident at first, but then gets crazier and crazier until he's taking out people that he kind of likes, kind of loves, including his crush, the local school teacher, the local grammar school teacher that also has a fetish for snakes and like wants to buy his snakes off of him so she can use them for sexual reasons. It is, if that sounds weird, if it sounds like a weird movie, I'm not impressing upon you how odd and how weird this movie is. But with a plot like that and with a description like that and with all the oddness that happens in this movie, there's a certain level of quality and a certain, like, this movie punches above its weight class in both structure and writing and locations and effects and all the different things that go into a movie. This movie's slightly better than you would imagine a movie like this would be, and that's what really kind of puts this movie over the top. I've never really heard anyone talk about it. It was complete blind buy, complete chance buy for me because I thought it had a cool cover, and I sometimes gamble on the things that Dark Force puts out. But this is an excellent movie. The only real downside to this disc is that there aren't really that many special features. There's just there's the alternate title. You can watch it with the title card of Fangs. But otherwise, it just ends, and you're just completely mystified, and you don't really have that much of a of backstory or context as to what the heck you just watched was, other than the fact that you probably are going to like it. I really like this Holy Wednesday / FANGS. Very good. Pick it up. Next, I want to talk about a 4K Ultra HD lavish special feature laden edition of Alligator, the early 1980s, 1980 maybe, film from Louis Teague, co-written by John Sayles and starring Robert Forster. Alligator, if you don't recognize it with this cover, this is the new Scream Factory cover. This is a new Scream Factory release. You'll know this more classic poster, which I love. This is a reversible cover. This is a movie that I remember even from like the early days of DVD. This is a movie that people wanted to get released on DVD, and the rights are always tricky with this movie, and it took forever to get to DVD. And when it finally did get to DVD, I think it was Lionsgate. I'll cut this part out if I'm wrong, but I think it was Lionsgate that put out the first DVD of it, and it had this awful Photoshop cover that made it look like, you know, Lake Placid 27. But this is not Lake Placid 27. Alligator, if you have not seen it, you'd be forgiven if you're thinking like, Jaws derivative. It's not really. This is a story of an alligator that is bought as a baby at like a roadside attraction and gets flushed down a sewer and starts growing to larger and larger and larger, unnaturally large size. And we find out actually why the alligator grows so big and what it's been feeding on. And it's all kind of wrapped up in this kind of procedural mystery where Robert Forster's playing this kind of down on his luck cop, a very Robert Forster-esque character, in that he is your kind of workaday blue collar guy, but incredibly likable, and that's due to Sayles' script and just Robert Forster's magnetism and likability. But this is a movie that, you know, I really, when it was first announced, I almost thought it was like, is it an April Fool's Day prank or something like that? Because not only is this a movie that, again, those weird rights issues, I don't even think it had ever been on Blu-ray, at least not in the United States. There might have been a foreign quasi-gray market, quasi-legal Blu-ray of this. But this is a movie that I was not expecting to see announced as a 4K. And then when I thought about it, I was like, wait a second, that is a really good-looking movie, a really fetching, well-shot movie. And boy, oh boy, does this transfer look good. This movie looks like $1 million. It was always a movie that I always thought was good and amusing, and especially when you kind of put it next to Piranha, which is, this movie has a little bit of Corman DNA in it because Louis Teague went to that kind of Corman school where he was working with Corman early in his career. And this was a movie that he kind of made post that without Corman, but it has a lot of that influence in it. But Piranha was another movie where Sayles, a consummate professional, but also like an incredible artist in his own right, kind of took as like, oh yeah, I'll write you a Killer Piranha movie. I'll rewrite this Alligator script. So this is the kind of meat and potatoes, straightforward creature feature movie, but just executed to an unbelievably high level. Great cast in it, lots of familiar faces, awesome, incredible sequences of like they bring in a big game hunter to hunt the alligator. Once it leaves, the police successfully like flush it out of the sewers, but then it's running around downtown in the Midwest, in some Midwestern city. Get this herpetologist who ends up being both the love interest and actually the little girl that bought the alligator to begin with that got flushed down into the sewers. It's full of incidents and goofiness like that, but it's never played as a joke. It's always funny and fresh and zips along, but it's never a parody, which is, I think, why I love Alligator so much. That and the special effects are really, really impressive. On-screen special effects, creature effects with a animatronic alligator and all these different things, but also they do a lot of miniatures work where they put a real alligator, which are kind of perfectly to scale, and then they build an alleyway or a trash pile for it to hide it, and then put the alligator in there, and they shoot it really nice, and the sense of scale is awesome. And those effect shots and those miniature shots, and you know it's good because if you watch it in 4K and you're like, wow, I can see every imperfection of everything that I'm seeing, but it still looks really, really good. That's the hallmark of a great movie. So Alligator, yeah, if you're a fan of this movie, an absolute no-brainer, upgrading to this 4K. If you've never seen it, it's really like a great kind of underseen movie because of it used to be on TV all the time. When I talk to people who are slightly older than me, they're like, "Oh yeah, I used to see that on the Saturday movie show all the time." It's kind of fallen out. It doesn't really get played like that anymore, and it's harder to find on disc. But kudos to Scream Factory, because this is one of their better releases. Fantastic stuff. They got a bunch of new features on here. They ported over the commentary with Forrester and Teague. It's great. It's really good. Next, I want to talk about Homebodies. Homebodies is a movie I've heard about for quite a long time. Years ago, probably like 5 or 6 or 7 years ago now, probably maybe even more than that, I'd written a book called Mercy House, which is one of my only books you can't get in paperback because Random House and Penguin, they own the rights, and they've only ever put out an ebook. So if you read ebooks, go read Mercy House. I think it's great. I think it's one of my better books. But I don't own the rights to it, so I can't put out a paperback. If you want a paperback, tell Penguin Random House that they should release a paperback. That's neither here nor there, but the premise of Mercy House is an old folks' home where the old folks, there's either a chemical spill or there's something happens. There's a smell that only these old folks can smell, and it starts bringing them, kind of rejuvenating them and making them stronger, but it also makes them crazy and evil. So that's the premise of Mercy House. It's like the staff of a old folks home versus the old folks. But when I was writing it and when that book got released, everybody kept telling me, "Oh, have you seen Homebodies? There are so few killer old folks movies. Have you seen Homebodies?" And I had to tell them, "No, I've never seen it." And finally, Homebodies is out on Blu-ray. And this is like 10 years later, I'm finally able to take everyone's recommendation and check out Homebodies. Homebodies is kind of nothing other than old folks killing people. Kind of nothing like Mercy House, because that's a really gory, really in-your-face, very almost zombie-esque book. This is almost a character piece, a character study, and a discussion about gentrification. There was this whole pro and con discussion of the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre and how it uses gentrification as a theme and people getting kicked out of their homes and things like that. And, you know, that movie is not a masterclass treatise on these themes and these ideas. Homebodies kind of is. Homebodies is about a group of 5 or 6 old folks living in a city. Their whole block is being demolished and the whole block is being condemned because there are new high-rise apartments, new fancy modern skyscrapers being built right behind their row homes. And we watch as like people from the city are coming and putting these people on buses and kind of throwing out everything they own and putting them in old folks' homes, and they don't want to leave. And these 5 or 6 folks in Homebodies push back, start sabotaging the work site, that the skyscraper's going up. They start attacking the people that come to take them out. We've got the woman upstairs who's a complete agoraphobe that doesn't leave her apartment, has never left her apartment in the last 20 years. We've got her best friend. We've got a blind guy. We've got the guy who's writing a book about his dead wife, and now that she's passed on, and he's got all his notes and stuff like that, and it's really sad, and like they want to throw all this stuff out. And then we've got like the super and his wife. And they form this kind of squad who's going to take out these people who are trying to move them. It's very, very sedate compared to what I'm kind of describing it as, and very, very funny. It's got a kind of dark humor thrown across the whole thing, but it's got a lot to say about how we kind of, once you reach a certain point in society, once you're no longer of use to society, we feel, younger people feel that they can just move you away. They can just, push you under the rug and get rid of you, and how these are people too. Even if they go to sociopathic lengths to kind of stay where they are. Very, very real sleeper of a movie. Kino, if you're interested in this movie, Kino Lorber, they do semi-annual sales where these movies are usually pretty cheap because they've got great distribution, and they're usually pretty cheap on Diabolic DVD and Amazon. But they get really, really cheap when they do these sales. They do one in spring, and I think they do one around Halloween. But if you go follow them and buy during the sales, You can get these movies for like $10 each, less than that sometimes. The last movie I want to talk about, I mean, not so much lightning round. I just talked long about a lot of movies. But this movie is William Malone's Creature, originally called Titan Find, and there is a version of Titan Find on this disc, which is the director's cut version. It is it's about 5 minutes longer. It's got a different title card, a little bit different setup. But this is, if this looks like an Alien knockoff to you, it 100% is. It is very much in the same camp as something like Forbidden World or Mutant or Galaxy of Terror, all those Corman movies that were ripping off Alien. This is like that. It's got a little bit more of a 1950s thing from another world feel to it, which they even directly reference in this movie. Almost Planet of the Vampires feel to it, but no mistake, it is an Alien ripoff. A group of astronauts who are working for a private company, private corporation that's in direct competition with a German corporation. So they're trying to get to this planet first, and they know that there's some kind of artifact there because their astronauts who are at this work site kind of sent back information about that. But both of them died. One of them crashes right into the space station. So they don't really know why they died, but they know that there's something on this planet that they want. So they send these, it's like Aliens too. It's like Alien and Aliens, because there's like a company man who's overseeing the mission. There's the actual captain of the ship, and then there's his crew that are all romantically entangled with each other. They get to the planet and things go wrong. They're immediately attacked. But then the crewmen we thought were dead start coming back and start like kind of beckoning people out of the ship. So it's almost got like a little bit of like I Am Legend, Come Out Neville, body snatching horror along with the Alien stuff. But what really separates this movie is William Malone directed the House on Haunted Hill remake. He's a good director, and this movie is the special effects, the design of it, the look of it, the dialogue, all kind of a cut above, all better than Roger Corman kind of would have given them the money to make, say, like a Forbidden World or something like that. So it's a little bit better than all those. The special effects are a little better. The creature itself is really creepy. The gore when it kills people is pretty graphic, pretty disturbing. The little creatures that it uses to take over people's minds are kind of cool and creepy. Just a very, very meat and potatoes movie that I enjoyed a lot. And I think it's filmed CinemaScope. It's filmed like kind of real widescreen. This is one of the better looking, and Vinegar Syndrome usually does a good job. I've got a lot of Vinegar Syndrome movies, but I think because it's a little bit of a newer movie for them, it's 1985. I think the transfer of this looks incredible. Like what they do with Beware Children at Play, they talk to the director separately. They talk to Malone on his own special feature, and then they do this kind of long form, nearly hour-long retrospective documentary. Kind of people you wouldn't normally associate with special features who normally get to sit down and talk on these things. But yeah, it's a good movie, good disc, and it directly connects to our book recommendation. Today's book recommendation, I rarely, never really ever do this. This is a book that I have not read yet. I just got this in. This is a mass market paperback sized edition of Scared to Death, the novelization. This was written by my friend Matt Serafini, based on the screenplay by William Malone. So this is the movie that William Malone made before he made Titan Find / Creature. This is Scared to Death. There's even a weird, really meta sequence in Creature where one of the crewmen is reading the novelization to Scared to Death, but it was a novelization that didn't exist. They didn't have a novelization of it at the time. Now, 40-something years later, my buddy Matt Serafini wrote the novelization, and it was put out through Encyclopocalypse Press. They're doing these retro novelizations for movies that never got novelization. They've done one for Vamp. They did one for Titan Find, actually. There's a novelization of that movie. I'm just recommending this as the book recommendation because Matt's my friend, and he's a great writer. If you haven't read his book, Rites of Extinction, or if you haven't read Feral or Devil's Row, I highly recommend checking those books out. But I got this, and the reason I haven't read it yet, I haven't started reading it, is I've never seen Scared to Death. Don't want to read his novelization before I watch the movie. Weirdly enough, I have seen this creature, the Sinjanor, in the movie Sinjanor, which has nothing to do with Scared to Death, from my understanding of it. William Malone just kind of rented them out the suit, or it's a quasi-sequel that just has the creature in common. But either way, Scared to Death, the novelization, what a weird thing. What a weird, cool thing that that Encyclopocalypse is able to do now. I guess they tangle the rights. I think Malone was involved in writing this book. I think Matt talked to him and picked his brain about the best approach to novelizing Scared to Death. Just an odd thing that I now have the book that appears on screen in 1985 in Creature, but wasn't really a book until like last week. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, hit like. If you really like this video, please subscribe. Please go check out my other videos. We've got plenty of other horror movie and book recommendations. If you really like me and you want to go buy Clown in the Cornfield, or if you want to place a pre-order for Clown in the Cornfield 2, Friendo Lives, it really, really, really helps me out. It's hard to express when you pre-order a book, especially, it doesn't come out until August. So if you're watching this video when I'm putting it up, it's almost 6 months from now. It doesn't come out until August, but if you pre-order that book, if you pre-order from Barnes & Noble or Amazon or your local bookstore, it tells the publisher to print more copies. It tells the publisher, oh, there's demand for this book. We better support it. We better give more resources and promotional resources to this book because people are interested in buying it. Buying a book and reviewing a book on Amazon, that all helps me out so much. But the thing that helps out the most is pre-ordering an author's next book. So if you have an author you like, they're not even me. Just pick an author you like. If you go and then you see they have a book coming out, pre-order it. It's usually the cheapest way. It's usually the cheapest way to buy the book because Amazon will typically drop the price, Barnes & Noble will typically drop the price, and you'll end up paying the cheapest price during your pre-order is what they'll charge your credit card at the end. So yeah, please do that. I'll put the links to all the movies we discussed down in the description, so you can go pick these up from either Amazon or friends at Diabolic DVD. And I hope you have a great rest of the week. I will see you next time.